Hello everyone. Now we will see X-linked A-gamma globulinemia. It is also known as Bruton A-gamma globulinemia. It is an immunodeficiency disorder. Before going to this Bruton A-gamma globulinemia, just we will say what is immunodeficiency disorder. Immunodeficiency disorder, it's a group of disorders in which the defect appears to be intrinsic to one or more components of the immune system. And these immunodeficiency disorders are of two types: primary immunodeficiency disorders and secondary immunodeficiency disorders. Primary immunodeficiency disorders are humoral immunodeficiencies and then cell mediated immunodeficiencies and also complement system deficiencies and phagocytes immunodeficiency disorders. So, here this humoral or B cell immunodeficiencies, they are caused by the improper production of one or all the immunoglobulins. So, which results in an increased infections from Staphylococcus, Streptococcus, Haemophilus and Pseudomonas. Primary humoral immunodeficiencies include X-linked A-gamma globulinemia, common variable immunodeficiency, selective immunoglobulin A deficiency. Now we will see X-linked A-gamma globulinemia. So it is a primary immunodeficiency characterized by very low levels of immunoglobulins. Then people affected by this condition generally begin developing frequent and recurrent bacterial infections from about 6 months of age. This XLA or Bruton A-gamma globulinemia, it is an inherited immunodeficiency disease caused by mutations in the gene coding for Bruton tyrosine kinase, that is BTK. This disease was first elucidated by Bruton in 1952, for whom the gene is named. BTK is critical for the maturation of pre-B cells to differentiating mature B cells and ultimately leading to the production of antibodies. And this XLA occurs in approximately 1 in 2 lakh newborns. The genetic defect inhibits the differentiation of B cells into plasma cells, which ultimately which are responsible for producing immunoglobulins. Because of abnormally low immunoglobulin levels, the child is susceptible to certain infections like meningitis, recurrent ear infections, chronic sinus, upper respiratory infections, etc. So, this is a condition, XLA is a condition that affects the immune system and occurs exclusively in males. People with XLA have very few B cells, which are specialized white blood cells that help protect the body against infections. So, here you can see B cells can mature into the cells that produce special proteins called antibodies or immunoglobulins. So, pro B cell converted to pre B cell, then B cell, and which matures and becomes a plasma cell, and this plasma cell produces antibodies. And these antibodies attaches to the antigens and then marking them for the destruction. Individuals with XLA are more susceptible to infections because their body makes very few antibodies. Children with XLA are usually healthy for the first 1 or 2 months of life because they are protected by antibodies which are acquired before birth from their mother. Later, the maternal antibodies are cleared from the body and the affected child begins to develop recurrent infections. In children with XLA, infections generally take longer to get better and then they come back again even with antibiotic medications. The most common bacterial infections that occur in people with XLA are lung infections such as pneumonia, and bronchitis, ear infections like otitis, then pink eye, conjunctivitis, and sinus infections, sinusitis. Infections that cause chronic diarrhea are also common in these patients, and recurrent infections can lead to organ damage. People with XLA can develop severe life threatening bacterial infections. However, affected individuals are not particularly vulnerable to infections caused by viruses. With treatment to replace antibodies, infections can usually be prevented, improving the quality of life for people with XLA. Mutations in the BTK gene causes XLA, that we have already discussed. And what does it do, or actually what happens? So the gene, that BTK gene, provides instructions for making the BTK protein, and this protein is important for the development of B cells and normal functioning of the immune system. But mutations in the BTK gene prevents the production of BTK protein. So the absence of functional BTK protein blocks B cell development. So it inhibits or it blocks the B cell developments and leads to lack of antibodies. Without antibodies, the immune system cannot properly respond to foreign invaders and prevent infections. And it is as we already know that it is an inherited disease. We will see the inheritance pattern. So this condition is inherited in an X-linked recessive pattern. The gene associated with this condition is located on the X chromosome. That's why this is X-linked recessive pattern. And this X chromosome is one of the two sex chromosomes. In males, they have only one X chromosome. So one altered copy of the gene in each cell is sufficient to cause the condition. In females who have two X chromosomes, a mutation would lead to occur in both the copies of the gene to cause this disorder. So, because it is unlikely that females will have two altered copies of this gene, males are affected by X-linked recessive disorders much more frequently than females. So, this is the characteristic of X-linked inheritance pattern, and then that's why the X-linked inheritance is that fathers cannot pass X-linked traits to their sons. About half of affected individuals do not have a family history of XLA. In most of these cases, the affected person's mother is a carrier of one altered BTK gene. So here this is carrier mother, this is unaffected father. So carriers do not have the immune system abnormalities associated with XLA, but they can pass the altered gene to their children. In other cases, the mother is not the carrier and the affected individual has a new mutation in the BTK gene. So X-linked A gamma globulinemia is caused by mutations in the BTK gene, and it is inherited in an X-linked recessive manner. Coming to the symptoms, affected infants are usually healthy for the first few months of life until they begin to develop recurrent bacterial infections. The most common bacterial infections are ear infections, pneumonia, pink eye, sinus infections. We already discussed all this. And these bacterial infections can be severe and life-threatening, and most affected individuals are not vulnerable to infections caused by viruses because T lymphocytes are there to protect the viral infections. Then infections can usually be prevented with a proper treatment. Coming to the treatment, treatment aims to boost the immune system, which may be accomplished by administering immunoglobulins through a vein or subcutaneously. and then frequent infections are generally treated with antibiotics. This is the treatment strategies that are available so far.